Sometimes the best laid plans just go awry in many sports, like baseball, basketball, football, and hockey, of course, even soccer. But the fact of the matter is, sometimes you can have the best player in the world as it were, your MVP, and yet you just can't put up anything good in the world. There are certain franchises that are good and some franchises are bad. And sometimes when you have a great player, you're expected to win the Super Bowl because, it's an MVP. But the MVP in the NFL is not really that great when it comes to Super Bowl appearances and all that. As the fact of the matter is that sometimes some teams need a giant push. So this is the story of the 2023 Baltimore Ravens, one of the newest members of the Cutter What If series. So get ready. I said, are you ready? Are you ready for some Cutter What If NFL football? A weekend invasion. Yeah, it's Cutter talking to you live. We got the hits and the misses. So come join me for all the fun. All the rowdy fans come in. It's the weekend, y'all. Are you ready? Yeah, let's do this, baby. Yes. So anyhow, the Baltimore Ravens have a tradition, not a non-traditional way in making it through things. Baltimore was home to the Baltimore Colts for many years. They were a staple of the NFL in the 50s and 60s, winning titles and then just coming close in Super Bowl III, losing to the Jets in the famous guarantee game. The fact of the matter was that Baltimore did get their championship 2 years later, but money was just too tight. Robert Irsay was not pleased with the fact that the city of Baltimore would not pay for a new stadium and all that. And people rejected a proposition. So Irsay decided to move the Baltimore Colts elsewhere and was intrigued by Indianapolis because Indianapolis did have the RCA Dome ready to bring in a team. Well, they called it the Hoosier Dome, but now it's the RCA Dome. The fact of the matter was that the Colts left for Indianapolis and Baltimore was left without a team, and their mayor was on the front page crying and all that. And then the city did pass another ordinance, and the Orioles moved to Camden Yards in 1992 from Baltimore Memorial Stadium. So Memorial Stadium kind of sat unused because the Orioles left for Camden Yards. What are you going to do? Well, Baltimore got a renaissance with football in the strangest way possible because it wasn't the NFL they had a renaissance. That was part of the renaissance. It was the CFL. That's right. The CFL decided to bring American franchises to get more financially stable. Unfortunately, though, that worked as terrible as many cities like Shreveport, Memphis, San Antonio, even Birmingham, just in Las Vegas, they couldn't make CFL football work, even though that CFL football is 110 yards end zone to end zone and not 100. So the fact of the matter was that, they just didn't do the CFL. But there was one American franchise that ruled, and that was Baltimore. They played the CFL card correctly with the way they built players. They got players from CFL teams and they made things work and all that. They wanted to be known as the Stallions. They wanted to be known as the Colts, but the Colts name went with Indianapolis. So they were officially called the Baltimore CFLers. They did have a horse for a logo, but not a horse name. Nevertheless, Baltimore proved their worthiness and won the trip to the Grey Cup to face the BC Lions. The Lions won the game 26-23 on a late Louis Pasegua field goal. So Baltimore shockingly got to the final. An American team made the final. Wow. I won't lie, I actually thought Baltimore was going to win the Grey Cup in 1994, thinking it would be cool and all that. It would be cool for an American team to win in the CFL. Well, 9-year-old Jeff Diamond was very stupid, unlike a 40-year-old Jeff Diamond. The fact of the matter was that Baltimore did well. In 95, they went back to the CFL championship, the Grey Cup. They took on Calgary, beat them after a couple of returns for touchdowns, Baltimore got its Grey Cup, but it was moot because with the Cleveland Browns leaving Cleveland because of their stadium situation, Baltimore got the Ravens. It was just amazing. Baltimore now had their team. They couldn't be called the Baltimore Browns. They called themselves the Baltimore Ravens because Edgar Allan Poe is a famous member from Baltimore. Nevermore. So the fact of the matter is that, Baltimore now had an NFL team. They didn't need the CFL. And of course, the CFL pulled out of the States at the same time. But luckily, there was a silver lining as pretty much all of Baltimore moved to Montreal. So the Baltimore Stallions, as they were called in the second season, moved ship to Montreal to become the Montreal Alouettes. Montreal had the Alouettes in the CFL for many years, but in 1987 they dissolved. So CFL football was absent from Montreal for 9 years, and then they got it back in 1996, and the Alouettes proved to be one of the best teams in the CFL for many years. And of course, I'm a Alouettes fan. Only because Doug Flutie just had to leave for the NFL. I know that it was his decision, but Doug Flutie leaving for the NFL broke my heart, no matter how you slice it. And I said, screw the Argos, I'm cheering for the Alouettes. But anyway, yeah, so Baltimore CFL team went to Montreal and became successful. So, silver lining. So the Baltimore Ravens came in. Cleveland had to leave all their franchise stuff, including their colors and their history, in Cleveland. Baltimore essentially was called an expansion team. They won their first game against the Raiders. Ted Marchibroda became the head coach full circle because he was the Baltimore Colts coach at one time. So the Ravens went through growing pains and all that. They had a solid defense. They decided to take Ray Lewis in the draft, where many teams passed on him because of Ray Lewis's behavioral issues. They took like Jamie Sharper, Terrell Suggs, and many other great guys. Peter Boulware. So they had a good defense. One of the best defenses was the 2000 Ravens. They were great on defense. Their offense, not so much. Yeah, they had Jamal Lewis, which was a plus, and they had some great stuff. Their quarterback was supposed to be Tony Banks, but he floundered. And then all of a sudden, I don't know who the Baltimore Raven guy who said it, and you please help me, looked at Baltimore's backup and said, Trent Dilfer will I'll be. So anyway, Trent Dilfer came out of freaking nowhere. He was known as an NFL bust coming out of Fresno State for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, you know, he magically got the Ravens to win the 2001 Super Bowl. While their defense crushed the Giants into fine powder. The only touchdown the Ravens gave up was a kickoff return for a touchdown. So Baltimore's defense proved to be one of the best ever. Kind of like the Chicago Bears 46 defense in 1985. So regardless of that, Ravens known for their great defense. Sometimes their offense, not so much. But in 2013, they got to the Super Bowl against the 49ers. Lots of people wanted San Fran to win because Baltimore was just loud and obnoxious. And thanks to a Joe Flacco kind of Hail Mary floater to Jacoby Jones, RIP, the Ravens beat the Broncos in double overtime of the divisional round and took down Peyton Manning. The Ravens won the AFC title game from New England. Of course, I'm pissed off. And went to the Super Bowl. They looked good. They had that kickoff return for a touchdown. And then all of a sudden, the lights went out and San Fran did well. It was probably a conspiracy. They did not want Art Modell, who died the previous year, to have a Super Bowl in heaven or hell, wherever he is. Nevertheless, Baltimore has had some great years in which, they've had Joe Flacco pivot. And then once he moved on, they picked up this guy from Louisville by the name of Lamar Jackson. And he's been Action Jackson. Do you see the moves he does running the ball? One of the best running quarterbacks in history. But, no trips to the finals. So let's talk about the last time the Ravens had a chance to make the finals, 2023. So the 2023-24 Baltimore Ravens, it was their 28th year in the NFL and 16th under John Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh was still in Michigan making magic. Baltimore improved from 10 wins to 13 wins. Yeah, their preseason winning streak was snapped. Who cares? Nevertheless, they did have injuries. J.K. Dobbins, great running back for Baltimore, out with a season-ending Achilles injury by week 1. They had 20 players suffering injuries. In fact, all three of their primary running backs were hurt. Somehow, in some way, the Ravens pulled together thanks to Lamar Jackson not getting hurt and got 14 wins. This was the last season. Well, sorry, 13 wins. The best season since 2019. So yeah, they were 13-4. They were the number one overall seed. Of course, the other time was 2019 when they should have beaten those pesky Tennessee Titans. I should have made that my um, what if, because they were a number one seed and should have been Tennessee at the 6th seed. But I wrote it down 2023. So anyway, their defense looked pretty good. They led the league in sacks, points per game, as in the fewest points per game, and takeaways. In fact, they were the first team in NFL history to do so. Not even the Bears of 85-86 or the Ravens of 2000-01 did so. Lamar Jackson won the MVP as second. The Ravens crushed Houston in the division round, got to the AFC title game, their first as a franchise in 11 years, but lost to the Chiefs. In fact, this was the first time that the city of Baltimore got to host an AFC title game since 1971. And the first time in franchise history, the Ravens actually hosted multiple home playoff games. Really? In the offseason, there were some moves and all that. Kenyon Drake, running back, went to Indianapolis. Tyler Huntley was signed by the Ravens to be the backup for Lamar. Lamar signed a 5-year, $260 million deal as a UFA. He got the bag. Trayvon Mullen, Nick Moore came around. Jason Pierre-Paul left for New Orleans. Sammy Watkins was in UFA. Yeah, They also signed Nelson Aguilar, Odell Beckham, and Melvin Gordon, and Javian Clowney. They didn't lose too many people. In the draft, they didn't make any major moves. Well, they got Say Flowers from Boston College. So regardless of that, Lamar Jackson had Tyler Huntley and Josh Johnson as his backups. Yeah, J.K. Dobbins, Nick Moore, Trayvon Mullen was on the IR. So basically, they're done. The running backs were hit hard. Delvin Cook had to come in to be the main running back alongside Justice Hill. Nelson Aguilar, Odell Beckham Jr., OBJ, and Say Flowers, your wide receivers of note. Mark Andrews, your tight end of note. Offensive linemen of note. Morgan Moses, John Simpson, and Ronnie Stanley. Brent Urban and Michael Pierce at the D line of note. Javian Clowney, linebacker, alongside Patrick Queen, Tavius Robinson, Roquan Smith, and Kyle Van Noy, DBs. Marlon Humphrey, Ronald Darby of note. Rock Ya-Sin. Justin Tucker, the most accurate kicker in NFL history at kicker, and Jordan Snow, your punter. So they went on a bit of a roll. They lost to the Colts on home turf in overtime. They lost in Pittsburgh. They lost home to Cleveland and home to Pittsburgh, but who cares? So on to the postseason. Well, they won 13 games, tops in the AFC. Cleveland and Pittsburgh both made the playoffs too. Cleveland the 5 seed and Pittsburgh the 7 seed. Of course, this is 7 teams per playoffs, not 6. So yeah, Pittsburgh would not have made it. And Cleveland beat Miami on a conference record to be the 5 seed. So what happened was the Ravens got the bye into the divisional round. Buffalo normally would be hosting a division round game, but they had to host a wild card game and they had to face Pittsburgh, whereas Miami would face Kansas City and Cleveland would face Houston. Baltimore grabbed Houston as the 2 and 3 seeds both won their matches. So the Ravens Texans faced each other for the second time, but the Ravens were up 24 to nothing as C.J. Stroud got his butt handed to him. All that. Houston could only muster a field goal and a punt return for a touchdown. Baltimore got to their first AFC title game in 11 years. And Baltimore was finally hosting an a conference championship game, or a Final Four game, if you will. First time in 5 freaking decades. But unfortunately, those Chiefs just had to ruin it, winning 17-10. The Ravens wanted to get to the 3rd Super Bowl and missed out. 17-10. That game information. Mahomes to Kelsey, Jackson to Flowers, Pacheco got a run, and then, nothing much. The defense for the Chiefs actually scored some great plays. So anyway, the Ravens are actually There. So, trivia question: what do the Baltimore Ravens, Toronto Blue Jays, Colorado Avalanche, and the Chicago Bulls all have in common? Well, these are the four franchises in their respective leagues to actually have the most title wins without a loss. So the Ravens were 2-0 in the Super Bowl. No team is 2-0 or better in the Super Bowl now. I think Tampa actually is. No, wait, Tampa is 2-0, aren't they? Or did they lose one Super Bowl? I feel like they lost a Super Bowl. Nevertheless, you got yourself the Blue Jays, they're 2-0 in World Series. The Bulls are 6-0 in the NBA Finals, and the Colorado Avalanche have yet to lose a Stanley Cup final. That's just something to think about. Now, what if the Ravens did make the finals? All right, so what if the 2023 Ravens did make the Super Bowl? They would have faced the 2023-24 San Francisco 49ers at Allegiant Stadium in Paradise, Nevada. So the Chiefs were the home team in real life, so the Ravens will be the home team in this one. They face down San Francisco. Let's see what happens. And it kind of didn't work out that way. In the first quarter, Baltimore got the ball first, but they had to punt. San Fran punted, and it was battle of punts until Baltimore got a 6-play 49-yard drive near the end of the first quarter, with Mitchell getting the touchdown run to make it Mitchell make it 7-0. In the second quarter, San Fran worked through a 10-play 57-yard drive, and Zon Moody kicked a 30-yard field goal to make it 7-3. And then 6 plays 84-yard drive in the final minute of the second quarter. McCaffrey gets a touchdown run to make it 10-7. Baltimore could not do anything else. Third quarter, San Fran got the ball first and had to punt. A lot of punts. San Fran used a 10-play 63-yard drive thanks to Trey Mason's touchdown. He made it 17-7. I think it was Trey Mason. Fourth quarter for the Ravens, they needed help. They had a 4th and 1 on San Fran's 15. Didn't go for the field goal, which was strange. They went for the first down and missed. San Fran went for a field goal, went wide right. Baltimore 11 plays 58 yards to about 4:19 left. Zay Flowers got a touchdown to make it 17-14. San Fran had a punt with under 2 minutes left, and at their own 14, the Ravens had to do something about it. But on 4th and 17, Jackson heaved downfield needing something, but they couldn't do anything. The Ravens stumbled, and then 49ers would have won the Super Bowl. It would have been great for San Fran, and I know I have a couple cousins who are Niners fans. Keaton Mitchell touchdown run, Moody McCaffrey touchdown run, Jordan Mason, I call him Trey Mason, sorry, and Zay Flowers. So McCaffrey was named MVP, 6 for 13 for conversions for San Fran. Baltimore 8 for 18, 183, 173 for running. Passing yards 195, 97. As Lamar Jackson, 11 for 21, 17, but he got sacked a lot. Brock Purdy 18 for 26, 200 yards. McCaffrey 110 running the ball. And yeah, that's what happened. A lot of sacks. Anyway, Moody made from 30 and missed from 47. But the Ravens would have been out of the Super Bowl. And their perfect Super Bowl record would have been in tatters. Just saying. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond.